Hi, Garland Nixon here. I don't know how my light is and all that stuff, but I'm going to do the best I can. Um, so one of the things I'd like to talk about, what I'd like to talk about is basically the title of this video. The United States is run by sociopaths. You know, in the past, I had some thoughts of this. You know, if you listen to me, either my radio show on WPFW or wherever, you've seen me on Facebook Live. You know, oftentimes I've said, you know, recently the country is run by lunatics, mad, crazy people, mad women, right? I'm going to put it differently this time. I think that I was wrong, and let me tell you why. What is a sociopath? You think about narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths. Number one, you're looking at, when you get to the point of sociopaths and psychopaths, particularly, you're looking at people who have no conscience. These are people who don't have a concept of good and bad, of right and wrong. They have a concept of this is what I want. You know, you've got a next door neighbor and you got a bunch of puppies that are getting mangled and small animals that are getting killed. You're like, gee, something's weird. Next thing you know, some of your neighbors start going missing. You got a psychopath in the community, right? Why? No empathy. Why do they do that to puppies? Why do they kill people? Amusement. Makes them feel good. Seems like it's a fun thing to do. Maybe makes them feel power, right? So a psychopath or sociopath, they don't have empathy. Here's the key. They don't have empathy towards other people. It's all about them. So now I'm getting away from that crap that, you know, we've got lunatics or mad men and women or whatever running this country. Our country is run by literal sociopaths. And let me tell you what I mean. So right now, let's start with here. We're going to look outside. We're going to look inside, right? At what the foreign policy and domestic policy. Let's start with foreign policy. I could go on and on about the people we're killing, you know, the bombs, the wars, all that kind of stuff. But let's go here. There's a worldwide pandemic going on. Iran, 80 million people, they are hit by the pandemic. They were already hit by our American sanctions. So that's making it harder for them to address the pandemic. And what does the United States do? Crank down on the sanctions. Oh man, those people really got it bad. That puppy, really, where's that puppy think he's going? I'm pouring some gas on him and light him on fire, right? When these people are at their lowest, the United States kicks them even harder. Why is that? Because a sociopath has no empathy. See, like me, or probably even you, you'd probably think to yourself, man, you know, whatever I think of the Iranians, they're going through hell right now. That's probably not the best time to kick them. That ain't what a sociopath thinks. That's the best time to kick them. Let's go one further. Venezuela. The U.S. has been punching Venezuela for I don't know how long. Oh, they're socialists, whatever, as if that's the real reason. No, they have oil. And right now, in the midst of a pandemic, oil prices have collapsed. And what does the United States say? We're designating Nicolas Maduro as a narco-terrorist, a drug trafficker, when they need help, when they are suffering. The U.S. has the nerve to crank down on them even harder. And they say, hey, not only that, we'll pay anybody $15 million to bring us Nicolas Maduro. Why? Because the oil market has collapsed and the U.S. wants to steal their oil, and they could care less about the Venezuelan people can die of everything, starvation, pandemics. They don't care. They want that oil. That's our foreign policy. Right now, let me tell you this. A letter just went to the UN from China, Cuba, Nicaragua, Iran, Syria, Venezuela, and Russia. 1/4 of the world's population, 25% of the 7 billion people on this earth are under sanctions, are under an economic blockade by the United States and the U.S. sociopathic leadership. And I don't mean the Republicans, and I don't mean the Democrats. Show me the ones that are standing up saying, show me the Democrats that are standing up saying, hey, Trump, you know, you've gone too far there. In the midst of a pandemic, we can't kick these people. Show me the Democratic Party doing that. Show me the Republicans. They don't even know what's going on, according to them. That's not it. They don't care because sociopaths have no empathy. Me, maybe even you. I hope to God you're watching this, would look at it and say, you know, whatever I think of whatever group, it's absurd to me to say, I hate the Iranians, whatever. But let's just say, for instance, you're some kind of a sheep and you're buying into the CIA a trope that we should hate country X, whatever country that is. In the midst of pandemic, even if you're that much of a sheep, wouldn't you have some empathy for the people there? If you're a sociopath, you wouldn't, because sociopaths don't have any empathy at all. And I have come to the conclusion that our country is run by sociopaths. And it wasn't hard. Look, 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 look. You're walking down the street and you see a woman, well, she's got a baby and she's pregnant. She trips and falls. The baby slams his head. He's bleeding. She's bleeding. It's just a mess, right? Any human's going to look at it and say, oh my God, I got to act. But not a sociopath. They don't care. A sociopath may say, well, she ain't going to be needing that money in her purse right now. I think I'll take it. He don't care about her. He doesn't have the ability to empathize with other human beings. That's what sociopaths are. That's how they think. Like it or not, that's the status of a sociopath, inability to empathize. Now, I'm saying that, so let's just say you are a sheep and you are buying into the CIA trope that whatever country that you're supposed to hate, according to the CIA, you hate them. Okay, let's turn it inward to domestic policy. Our domestic policy is one in which we have, as a country, told our people, okay, here's what you got to do. You've got to shelter in place. You can't go anywhere. Tens, probably hundreds of millions of Americans have been told by their government to stay in the house, right? You got to stay in. Most of them got no money. Most of them have no food. They have no savings. They have nothing. Now, the U.S. government, the sociopaths that run us, got together and they passed a bill. Now, if Garland Nixon is running this operation, you know what I call that bill? I call it the Coronavirus Relief Act, because I'm relieving the suffering of Americans. I'm thinking about the suffering of Americans. Man, in Canada, $2,000 per person for 6 months. In other countries, they've got a 70, was it Sweden or one of them, 75% of your salary. That's what you're getting. Other countries that aren't run by a sociopathic government have some empathy for their own citizens. See, a sociopath doesn't have empathy in some instances and not have empathy in other instances. That's an emotional tool that the sociopath does not possess. So they cannot exercise a tool that they don't have. If you don't have a drill, you can't drill holes in something. If you don't have empathy, you can't empathize with people on the other side. Mike Pompeo's literally grinning when he's talking about the sanctions. One of the things about it is, about a sociopath, and this is, you can look it up. There's a great book called The Sociopath Next Door. And one of the things they say is, if you tell a sociopath stories about suffering and people, great suffering, at times you'll see them crack a smile. They're actually enjoying those stories. Mike Pompeo's literally enjoying. Yeah, the Iranians think that this pandemic's going to get them out of that. Ah, they're wrong. Now, let's turn this inward. Now, and let me add this. Oh, the Democrats, why, they're nice. They're wonderful. Oh, how can we let the Republicans do that? Which one? Where are the Democrats condemning it? Where's the Democratic Party standing up saying this injustice will not stand? None of them. Because it's a sociopathic government. As an entity, the Republicans, the Democrats, this is a sociopathic government. Now, let's look inward with empathy. If they had empathy for the American people, which they can't, because they don't, as a collective group, possess that emotional tool, they would say, oh my God, well, let's see what we just did. We just told millions and millions of people that you got to stay in your house. They don't have food. Many of them don't have, this could go bad. And even if it's just enlightened self-interest, they could say, wait a minute, what's going to happen in a couple of weeks when people don't have food, don't have money, don't have work? This is going to go real bad, real fast. No. They didn't think about that. You know what they thought about? Man, this is an opportunity to pass another stimulus. They didn't call it the Coronavirus Relief Act. They called it the economic stimulus. That's what it's called, the economic stimulus bill. Why? Because there are two groups that are suffering. There are super rich donors who are like, man, we're going to lose our countries, but we'll still be millionaires, but we could lose our companies. There's another group that are like, uh-oh, we're locked in a house and we don't have food. And those are the people that voted for him. Those are their so-called constituents. What did they address? Did they give you the Coronavirus Relief Act or the economic stimulus bill? The economic stimulus bill. The name of it tells you what it is. And think about this. What are they doing? They're looking out for themselves. They're looking out for their billionaire donors. And let me add this. The sociopath does not even consider the consequences of their actions. They don't have the ability to do that in the same way that they don't have empathy. They don't have the ability to consider the consequences for their actions. So right now they're like, okay, what do we got? This is a tough time. People are suffering. Okay, what can we do? Ooh. Okay, here's what we can do. We can give lots of money to the billionaires. We can do a 2008 style stimulus bill on steroids, and things are really, really cheap now. So if we give the super rich even more money, when this thing kind of hopefully goes by aside, people will be poor. They'll be selling everything. The economy will be crashed. If we give these super billionaires more money, they can come in and buy everything again at a dirt low price. And guess what? There'll be even more income inequality. Our donors will be even richer. Let me give you a kind of metaphorical story about the way I see it, because we use the terms, the metaphor of the family for our country. You know, father of the country was George Washington. We send our sons and daughters to war, blah blah blah. Right? We use this metaphor. It's inappropriate, but we use it. So let's use a metaphor. There's a father and a mother and 3 children. And the mother says to the father, hey, little Johnny over there, first of all, we don't have any food. We're hungry. Me and your kids, I'm your wife, these are your kids, we're starving, we have no food. And I might add this. Little Johnny over there broke his leg. He needs to go to the doctors. Little Billy over there cut his femoral artery and blood's rushing out. We got to get him over there to save his life. And little Bobby over there, he's choking on a piece of Lego. Your kids are all severely injured and they need medical help immediately. Oh, by the way, we don't have any money. What are we going to do, honey? And the husband says, you know, our next door neighbor's got a new lawnmower and I really like that lawnmower. I'm going to go kick his ass and take the lawnmower. And she says, but what about your children? And he's like, you know, that lawnmower, let me tell you something. It's a John Deere L100, my favorite. You should see the deck on this thing, 54-inch. I mean, cut sweet. It's got lights on the front. Oh, I love that lawnmower. And he's outside and he's not looking. I can sneak up behind him, bat right in the back of the head. I'm getting that lawnmower. That's our government. While our metaphorical family is locked in their house with not a dime, with not in want of a morsel of food to survive, they pass this obscene bill that gives trillions of dollars to their billionaire donors. Then they say, oh, by the way, we got to tighten down the sanctions on Iran because I don't know why. Hey, they look like they're suffering. Let's just make them suffer a little bit more, because that's what sociopaths do. When you're down, they kick you because it feels good. It's fun. I'm a sociopath. That's what I do, right? Okay, when I crank down on Iran, oh, wait a minute, Venezuela, they haven't got hit hard yet. Yeah, but they probably will. Here's what we're going to do. Oh, this is going to be fun. Nicolas Maduro, their leader, we're going to designate him as a terrorist. So that way we can overthrow the country because, by the way, the oil market has collapsed. Venezuela has more oil than anyone else. We want that oil. Now, meanwhile, your family's home starving to death in need of medical help. And you're like, hey, I'm going next door and steal my neighbor's lawnmower. That's the government that we have. That is the government that we have. That's the sociopathic government that we have. That's why, in my opinion, they all need to be replaced. Every one of them. Love Tulsi, love Bernie. Great. You know, I'm a big Tulsi Gabbard fan, blah, blah, blah. I like Bernie Sanders. I have people that I like. Not one of them deserves to stay. Not a single one of them, because this is a sociopathic entity that we have here. This is an entity that has got to a point where as an entity, it clearly displays all of the requirements necessary to be designated as a sociopathic entity. Everything. Go down the list. Go online. Look for yourself and look. Here's what a sociopath is. Read it yourself. That's what our government is. So in my opinion, we have a sociopathic government and they all need to be changed. One of the things that I'm going to get into, I'm going to get a website up. I'm going to start this thing called a new leadership movement. Nobody may not join. I don't know. Who cares if anybody joins? I'm going to do it because I want to do it. I'm going to get my site up, and it's going to do various things, operations. And the first operation that I'm going to do, I'm planning on doing, is going to be called Operation Clean Sweep. What is Operation Clean Sweep going to be? Operation Clean Sweep is going to say this: get rid of all of them. The ones I like, the ones I don't like. Let me tell you, if you got a sociopath next door, yeah, you gotta move. You got to get away from them. If you read, if you look up, if you research how to deal with a sociopath, or in this instance, a psychopath, because the psychopath is the more violent one. If you look up how to deal with the psychopath, there's one way: get away from them. You can't reason with them. They're like Terminators. They do what they do with no conscience. You can't reason with them. So if you think that you can somehow reason with these 535, and let's add the president and the vice president and say 537 sociopaths, you're wrong. You're wrong. And if it was never more obvious before, it is obvious now in the midst of pandemic. They're still looking at their enemies saying, oh, we got to steal their stuff. $15 million. Think about this. Let's just do this. Let's do $40 million. How many people can you feed with $40 million in a pandemic? During a pandemic, the U.S. government says we will pay anybody $15 million to bring us, Nicolas Maduro, and then we can put Juan Guaido in charge, and then we can steal all the oil of Venezuela. In this absurd bill, in this 2008 on steroid stimulus bill, right? $25 million to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. The Kennedy Center, where the elites go to watch ballet, where they go to watch, somebody play a Stradivarius, where they go to be entertained. Americans don't know where they're going to get a single morsel of food tomorrow by the millions. And these people look at this as an opportunity to say, I tell you, we got a lot of problems now, but here's mine. The seats are so uncomfortable in the Kennedy Center. You go in there to watch ballet, you're all over the place. You come out of there, your back's hurting. The bathrooms aren't pretty enough. They need some new arches. As literally hundreds of Americans are in great peril. These people look at this as an opportunity to spruce up the Kennedy Center. And meanwhile, we still got Americans, and they all signed off on it. Howard University, great, wonderful. I love Howard University. $15 million. For what? The people at Howard University ain't even there. You know what it was? One of these psychopaths looked at it and said, oh, you know what? I like Howard University. Let me slip that in. 15 million. So think about this. 25 million to spruce up the Kennedy Center so that they can be much more comfortable when they watch their ballet. 15 million to Howard University. Why? Because some guy's probably got connections. Some of it's going to go in his pocket. Who cares why? He probably graduated from Howard. He's looking out for himself. $15 million to bring over Nicolas Maduro so we can overthrow another government and take their oil. That's $55 million. How many people can you feed when people need food for $55 million that they're just squandering? That's just, to them, that's like reaching like right now, if I were to reach under this couch and see if there's some change under it, it doesn't mean anything to them. It's metaphorical money to them. It's abstract to them. Because they are sociopaths, so they cannot acknowledge the suffering of other people. Meanwhile, we're in a situation where, okay, let's say you got money. In a couple of weeks, it might not mean much. When people are literally starving, who's to say that they're not going to go break open the supermarkets? They're not going to run into supermarkets and take the food out and take the money. You can't buy it, food. You can't buy it. If people had torn it down and taken everything out, and that's what's coming. That's what they've set us up for. They set our country up for social and economic disaster. But remember, a sociopath can't see that. Why? Because it's also a sociopath does not have the ability to consider the consequences of their actions. And they're not even there. That's where we are. Our nation is run by a sociopathic entity, and 537 people, every member of Congress, plus the president and vice president, they all need to be changed. Nothing short of that, I don't think is going to help. Okay, maybe if we change 536 of them. Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe one Congress member somewhere or one senator could take, but that's not a good idea, because one sociopath in the group is one sociopath too many. And this entity is a sociopathic entity, and it makes me absolutely sick. And if people are still caught up in, well, you know, the Democrats, they're the evil ones. No, it's not the Democrats, it's the Republicans. While you poor saps sit around and argue over which is the evil, the Democrats or the Republicans, these people just take us all to the cleaners. And now here's what you know. They will tell us to stay in our homes, lock our doors, and later on, they'll come open the door when our skeletons are in there. When we are dead, oh, what happened to the American people? Yeah, it looks like they all died. Wonder what we can do with these skeletons. Maybe we can grind them up. There's a lot of calcium in there. Maybe we can make batteries or something out of them. They don't care. So are the greatest people. That's what we're up against, my friends. That's my feelings. If you enjoy this video, share it, subscribe and follow my channel. I'm going to start making videos regularly. I haven't been doing it, but I think it's important that I do in this situation for as long as things last, because they're setting us up for a disaster of biblical proportions. And I don't mean the coronavirus. That is what it is. That's bad enough. But the coronavirus is something that people will look at and they'll say, okay, you're telling me that this thing is bad, but I'm going to starve today. I can worry about the coronavirus. And the fact of the matter is the majority of the people that get it don't die. I'm not saying that we shouldn't take it serious. I'm just saying when a person's looking at starvation, they're going to say everybody that starves to death dies. That's kind of what it means to starve to death. So if you're going to tell somebody stay in because you could contract the coronavirus, and they're like, well, I don't need to contract the coronavirus to kill me if I'm dead of starvation, and I'm looking at my wife and kids and they're dead of starvation. They ain't going to be all that scared of the coronavirus. That's the problem. So we should be awakened, America. We should be awakened to a sociopathic government of Republicans and Democrats and whoever they are in there that says a country is down, Iran, a country is down, Venezuela. How do we do? What would you do? Think about yourself. What would you do if you're walking down the street and you saw a person laying on the street with their head broken, bleeding? I've been riding down the street myself, or walking down the street and see somebody fall over, and everybody runs over there. Sir, are you all right? Somebody's got their cell phone. Oh, call quick, call them 911. Somebody's down. I was riding down. I used to be a policeman, riding down the street in my police car. I see a car go over, drift over to the side, run into another car. Go over there. The guy had a medical emergency. He slumped over the wheel. I break the window. I'm trying to help. All these people are getting out. Officer, how can I help you? Why? Because most people have some level of empathy for others, right? What does our government do? When if you go by the metaphor of government as family, George Washington was the father of our country. We send our sons and daughters to war. If you go by that, it's their own children under that metaphor. Their own children saying, Mom, I'm hungry. Hey, you know, that guy over there's got something nice. I think I'm going to bop him in the head and take it. That is really nice. Hey, but look, Dad, I cut my leg and it's bleeding really bad. Can you take me to the hospital, Dad? And plus, I'm starving. I haven't anything to eat in days. No water. I think I'm going to die. And Dad looks at him and says, you know, my next door neighbor's got a nice lawnmower. He's not looking right now. I could sneak right up behind him, bop him in the head, and get that lawnmower. You know, it's an L100. Fantastic, Dad. That's the sociopath. That is exactly what our government is doing now. When we needed a coronavirus relief bill to help Americans, they passed an economic stimulus bill to help their billionaire donors who are already rich. That's what they did. See, you think there's two parties. There is one party. They all agreed on this, and they all, pounded themselves on the chest at pounded their chest at how wonderful they're doing. And they're like, hey, look what we did, an economic stimulus bill. We got that done in just 2 weeks. It would have taken them 2 days to write a bill that was 3 pages long. And they could have just said, we're giving people, they did like Canada, $2,000 a month for everybody for 6 months. Some people are going to get $1,200. It's absurd. Based on their 2018 tax returns. Now, if you made $99,000 or more in 2018, year and a half ago, you get nothing. Nothing. Zero. A lot of people get nothing. You might not have had a job since then. Now, let me add this. If you're making $99,000, most people that are making that right now, They were making it up until 2 weeks ago. Now their business is closed. They're making nothing. So what they're saying is not whether what you're making. They came up with ways to cut people off. Let's not pretend this is about how much you're making, because nobody's making it now. If they were saying we're going to go based on what people are making, they would have to look at what you are making during the pandemic, during the time that you're shut down, which for a lot of people is nothing. And then they'd say, based on what you're making right now, which is nothing, we're going to have to give you some money. But that's not what they did, because they didn't do it with the intent to give people money. They did it with the intent to cut as many people off as they possibly could. And as sociopaths, they didn't consider the consequences, because that ain't what sociopaths do. And so now if people are running in the street, tearing things to bloody hell, then they'll be like, huh, this is weird. How'd that happen? The people are so terrible. They will blame it on the starving people. Well, you know, the people are evil. Next thing you know, there's people in the streets with machine guns mowing down Americans, starving Americans. That's what they're looking at. That's what we're up against. So I'm planning for those who watch this video and may think, hey, you know, there's something to this. Here's what I'm planning on doing. You know, if you follow me on if you've seen my radio shows, if you've seen me on TV, if you've seen, you know, anything, here's what you know about me. I generally say I don't have a cure. I just say I evaluate things and I say this is the way it is. And if I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, whatever. You know, I'm kind of a Zen guy, and let the chips fall where they may. Now that we have identified that our government is run by sociopaths, there ain't but one way to deal with it. You see, if you've got a sociopath, if you're working with a sociopath, or excuse me, I said sociopaths, I meant psychopaths. A psychopath is violent, the violent one. You're working for a sociopath, psychopath. You're dealing, you're dating, you're married, whatever, sociopath or psychopath. There ain't but one way to deal with them. And that's to get rid of them, to get away from them, to leave, to go to another job, to divorce them, whatever you have to do. You got to get away from them because you can't reason with them. So I'm actually planning on starting an organization. I hope to have the website up in a week. I'm going to call it a New Leadership Movement. I'm going to call it the New Leadership Movement. And it's going to have that. So in calling it a movement, it's going to give me different things I can do. And I'm going to name each one of them like they do in the military, Operation so-and-so. The first one I'm going to call Operation Clean Sweep. It is nonpartisan. Here's what it says. We got 535 sociopaths, and we got a president and a vice president sociopath. They need to be changed. Simple as that. Now people say, oh, what if we get worse? Better. We got sociopaths. You can't get worse. You got nowhere to go but up. Well, but I like my sociopath. See, the thing about it is this. As I said, oh, Tulsi Gabbard's wonderful. She's part of a sociopathic group. The only way to fix that group, in my opinion, is to change the group. The only way to deal with a sociopath is get away from them, change them, fire them, divorce them, whatever you have to do. You can't stick around with sociopaths and psychopaths and narcissists. You got to get the hell out. Or they got to get the hell out. Somebody's got to get the hell out. And it needs to be the American people saying our decision is to get rid of you. Whether we can even do it, I don't know, because let's face it, they own the voting machines. But we need a movement like that. So here's what I'm going to do. My first operation is going to be Operation Clean Sweep. That's why, you know, if you know me, you know, I don't do, I haven't been doing, you know, look on my YouTube, just some crap I did a couple years ago here and there talking about this or that. But, you know, I wasn't where I am now. Needless to say, we didn't have a pandemic and a lockdown. And so where I am now is this. I've identified the problem, and I'm going to do what I got to do. Maybe nobody will pay attention. Maybe somebody will. Maybe people will say, hey, I'm all in. Let's do Operation Clean Sweep and get people. We got to change them all. It's nonpartisan. I'm not saying we got to change the Democrats. We got to change the Republicans. We got to change the independents. I'm not saying, well, if you're a Democrat, stick with your guy. He's good. Wink, wink. Ooh, Tulsi Gabbard, love her. Wink, wink. You got to stick with her. But the rest of them got to go. That's the game we played before. You tell me how it's worked out. You tell me how it's worked out. I say they all have to go, every last one of them. That's going to be the movement that I'm pushing. If you are interested, hope to have my website up. I'm going to give you my email address. Maybe I'll get an email from somebody, maybe not. My email address is garlandn, Garland, and the letter N. My name's Garland Nixon, so it's my first name and the first letter of my last name, garlandn@gmail.com. I'm a nobody. I do radio shows. I've done some TV, what have you. I've done a lot of Fox News, but I'm no big movement, wealthy person. I'm just an average schmuck. So I don't expect that it'll go far. But I'm going to do it anyway because it needs to be done. And maybe somebody will hear it and at least I'll feel good. If I'm not eaten within the next 3 weeks, if the hungry hordes have not torn my house down and put me roasted me over an open fire, it could be coming. But if it doesn't, if I'm fortunate enough to be around here, I'm going to do that. That's going to be my thing. Garlandin@gmail.com. If you're interested, if you think that's a good idea, feel free to email me. I'm going to, now that I got something to do and I have something I have interest in, I'm going to start doing my my YouTube show, my YouTube videos regularly, and hopefully people will watch them, and hopefully somebody will be interested, and hopefully you guys will share this video. So I love you. I got nothing but love for everybody, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. Hey, thanks a lot for watching the show. Share it, like it. As a lot of them, the YouTubers say, like, share, subscribe, or something like that. I don't know what order they go in, but subscribe to my channel, like this, share it with other people, and email me, garlandin@gmail.com, if you are interested in what I'm saying, getting these sociopaths out. They are sociopaths with their foreign policy, with no empathy for other human beings. The Iranians ain't even human beings to them. The Cubans, the Nicaraguans, the Venezuelans, the Russians, the Chinese, they're not even human beings to these people. Anytime they would crank down on sanctions in the midst of a pandemic when these people are suffering. And neither are you if you're an American citizen. See, you can say, oh, I hate the whatever group you name. They're because of whatever you come up with. Do you hate us? Do you hate the American people? Do you hate the people that get up every morning and put on a hard hat and go to work? My dad was a longshoreman. He put on a hard hat. He went out and froze his butt off loading a ship. And when it was hot, he went out and he burned it, fried every day, loading ships. He was a hardworking American. And so that's where I get my vision from. That's where I get my perspective from. Growing up, seeing a guy who put a hard hat on and earned an honest living. And now I see those people beaten down, pushed in their house, and told to starve to death by the sociopaths who run this country. I'm sorry. It's time to move. And I'll add, this is not limited to the United States. You got another country, I don't care, England, whoever. If you feel the same, you are free. Garlandin, GARLANDN @gmail.com. If you are interested in supporting it. I want to get my wife, and I'm not saying money. I mean, at this point, I'm going to get the website up. I'm not asking for money, and maybe at some point I'll put up some options for people to donate if they choose. Right now, they don't have it. I wish I had money to give to you. The bottom line is I do. My tax money, I paid it, but I can't because the sociopaths that control it only give it to billionaires. We don't get it back. Like, share, subscribe. I'm out.